Well, good morning. Have we any visitors this morning? Nobody? Okay. Oh, there's one. From where? Kentucky? Okay. What do we know? What do we have in common with Kentucky? Anybody know? What? No. Commonwealth. There are 46 states and 4 commonwealths. Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Massachusetts, and Virginia. Did you know that? So, Kentucky and Pennsylvania are 2 of the commonwealths. Now, enough history. Or whatever that is. I guess that's government. This morning, in the scripture, we have this reading from the book of Exodus, which talks to us about Moses' call. And one of the things that happens in the Christian life, in the spiritual life, is that God is constantly calling us. Now, the word vocation comes from a Latin word vocare, meaning to call. A vocation, however, is never a voice. If you came to me and said, you know what, I think God spoke to me today as I was driving and said I should go be a nun, okay? And if I say to you, did you hear a voice? And I say, yes, I would recommend you not be a nun. I'd recommend you go somewhere else, and it wouldn't be there. So vocations then are not auditory calls. And we see in the book of Exodus this morning the anatomy of what a call is. And all of us get a call, and we get several kinds of calls. There are life-altering calls. Some of us feel called to marriage. Some of us feel called to ministry. Some of us feel called to do missionary work. So there are things that alter our whole being. Then, in addition to those large calls, there are intermediate calls that we get all the time. We may be called by God to make peace with someone. We may be called by God into love for someone else. We may be called by God into doing something specific for someone else's life. But there's an anatomy to how those calls work. And it's outlined in today's book of Exodus, where Moses is out shepherding his father-in-law's sheep. And as he's doing that, he looks over and there's a bush and it's on fire. And he thought, well, that's unusual. So he's attracted to go find out why. Then he looks more closely at it and sees that not only is it on fire, but it's not burning up. It's not being consumed. It's not being destroyed. So now he's really interested. So the first phase of a call of any kind is attraction. God puts something out there and sucks us in. It might be a word that we hear. It might be a phrase that we see. It might be a movie. It might be a person we meet. It could be anything. But God uses something to pull us more deeply into a relationship with Him. Someone might say to us, why don't you come to this talk? Or why don't you come to church with me? Or why don't you do this or that? And they come because they like you, not because they particularly want to hear the talk. But once there, they get further pulled in. So Moses goes over and looks at the bush, and the next thing, God is there. And God tells him there, you're on holy ground. And somehow Moses understands what's going on. That God has now hooked him. And so the second is the recognition of the call. So first, we have this attraction. Then secondly, this engagement by God where He pulls us in. And thirdly, and He tells us what He wants of us. Thirdly, then, comes the stage of questioning. Why me? What do you want me for? Let me alone. And if you look at all the calls in the Old Testament, whether it was Noah or Moses or Jeremiah, every one of them said, not me, Lord. Jeremiah sailed around the world to get away from God, and he still got him. So the Lord's tugging at everyone's heart this morning. The Lord's saying to everyone in this room, you know what? I have a job for you. And some of you are doing a good job of saying, not me. You see? You're not sucking me in. But he's talking to your heart. There's someone in your life that you need to forgive. There's someone in your life that you need to make peace with. There's someone in your life that you need to reach out. There's someone in your life that you're ignoring. There's some activity that you're supposed to be doing, and you're sitting on your hands, and you're saying to God, no, not me. Not me. So, God gets us here. Then he engages us. Then we begin to question him. And the fourth thing then is that every vocation that we remember, all those people whose stories are accounted in the Bible, moved on to the fourth piece, which was action, where they embraced that vocation, whatever it was. Do you remember Jesus in the garden? When he had done all these things and gone through all these stages, he was questioning God. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he says to the Lord, I know they're going to beat me up tomorrow. I know they're going to kill me. I'd rather that not happen. But not my will, your will.